Welcome to episode 3 of What's the Yarn. Today we're going to spotlight Carly Wallace. But before we jump into our yarn, I'll just do a quick acknowledgement of country. So I am recording today on Ghana country, which is the Adelaide region. And I want to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and also acknowledge that their land and sovereignty never ceded. I also want to acknowledge our other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners today, and we extend that same respect to you. And just before we move on, Kylie, do you want to just do an acknowledgement of the country you're on today?
Yeah, so I'm coming to you from Meanjin or Brisbane, up here in Queensland. I sit on the south side of the river in Brisbane. So this is our Yuggera side of the river, and on the north side is the Turrbal mob. And like to pay respects to the mob here in Brisbane. Been here since 2013. So and the surrounding areas as well, across to Quandamooka, down to Yuggera country. So there's lots of mob down these ways. But I'm currently on the south side of the river on Yuggera country.
Definitely. Thanks for that. Now, Carly, you're pretty famous, I guess, in the blackfella community. I'll say that. And but for those that don't know you, like, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, who your mob is, and where you're from?
Yeah, I prefer infamous than famous. So I'm Carly Wallace. My mob are the Dulgabara Yidinji people from far north Queensland. So just inland from Cairns is a place called the Atherton Tablelands. So I'm a freshwater Murray, bummer we say up there, so freshwater rainforest person. So I grew up in North Queensland on country, in the sugarcane and cornfields and rainforest and freshwater. So that's where I'm from. I've been in Brisbane, like I said, now since 2013, but kind of moved around and off country when I was 17, then back, and then in Sydney and all over the shop. But Brisbane is where I stop now, but home is always far north Queensland.
Deadly. Yeah, it made me think, because I had to Google where your mob was from. And I lived in Cairns for a little bit, so and Gordonvale as well. So I was like, oh, it's really not that far. But it was deadly to see that. But so we're in episode 3 of this show, and basically the idea of my I'm calling it mobcast now,
Nice.
not podcast. But the idea is to highlight some pretty, I'm going to say, role models, I guess, for our mob, our community. And I come across you, and I thought, well, you're definitely someone that, I've seen a lot of positive things from your page and so forth. But I guess you've got a lot of media experience, and I read that through the bio that you sent through me. And what attracted you to media?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for saying I'm a role model. Sometimes I don't feel like it. I try to be the best role model, but I'm definitely not perfect like all of us. But I come from a pretty strong family of, strong Black women, especially, and men, and raised me amongst all the stuff we were going through. They raised me pretty good, and my cousins as well. So I can say that that's where I've got it from. So I've had some pretty good role models to role model from, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So media, I got into media when I was 17. It's a funny story, actually, because growing up where I grew up on the Tablelands, it's a very small place, like it's very country. So the only kind of options you can be up there when you're going through school is you can be like in the tourism industry, because in North Queensland, we're about the tourism. You can be in hospitality, or like, retail. You could be a hairdresser, a farmer, like kind of like your standard stock standard. Nothing wrong with that. But I always knew I didn't want to do any of those things. I don't want to be a farmer. I'm a real diva, so I can't be out in the field. Can't do it. So didn't want to be a hairdresser. Got no patience for that. I tried hospitality, hated that. Tried tourism, hated that. But I always knew, like, I guess what I was good at was making people laugh. Even if they were laughing at me, I was always kind of quick-witted growing up, and always had an answer for everything because I'm hard-head. And that turned into wit, I guess, like quick-witted stuff. So it wasn't until I got to like year 12 and I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do? I don't want to be stuck in this town forever, not to like run my town down, but, just your standard country town that I didn't want to stay there. I knew I wanted to kind of get out and see the world and do other things. will always be my home, will always be my traditional country, and I'll always go back there at some point to live and, you know, do my duties, my cultural duties. But I knew I just wanted to do something, I don't know, just different. You know, I was always that kid that loved creative stuff. So I did like man arts, manual arts, woodwork and stuff till I was like year 12. I was like one of the only girls doing that. And I did art. I did all those things because I hated school. Like I wasn't like a very, learning for me came really difficult. Like it was not an easy process for me. So I never really liked the subjects, and I never really went for like a OP score and all those things that you do to get into uni. Like it wasn't really an option for me. I had no idea what I wanted to do right up to year 12. And I was really like freaking out, thinking, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to be stuck in this town. And then a friend of mine said to me, oh, do you want to, I'm going to do some commentary like at the sports day at school for year 12. She's like, do you want to come and like sit in the tent and we'll just muck around? I was like, yeah, go on, I'll do that. Like, because I love music. Like music was always my thing. And so we did that. And like everyone was kind of going like, wow, like yous are so funny, or that was mad, that song was deadly, or like, you know, this is just at my school with like everybody. And it just, as soon as the mic came on, I just had like no shame and I just felt really comfortable. I was just basically mocking like everyone running, everyone that had sporting ability. I was mocking them in the tent because I had none, you know, like I was just, that was like my talent. I could just, well, use a running and use a
Just run them down.
just run these down. That's what I can do. So, you know, not everyone has my skill, but nah. So that was kind of like a bit of a light bulb moment, hey, in year 12, and that was like mid-year 12. And I remember going to my guidance counselor and I said, oh, how do you like get into radio? You know, like how do you do that? Because I always listened to the radio. I was the kid that used to play, like we'd hear the radio and then there used to be like this feature on the cassette player back in the day that you could record, and then there would be Gambler microphones. So we'd Gambler make our own radio shows and then like get like, you know, Gambler talk. Like we used to do that, like playing radio like back in the day. So then it was like, oh, maybe I could do that like as a living. I wonder how you do that, you know? And my guidance counselors were like, I have no idea. I don't know. Can't tell you. I can tell you how to get an apprenticeship in hair cutting or tourism. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I ended up going to Townsville and saw like through a kind of school-based uni trip with Murray's Murray unit that we had at school, you know, blackfellas going on our little uni trip. So we did that, and they had a full radio and like media kind of course. And I was like, wow, like this exists, you know, like no one told me all that time, and that just kind of clicked for me. So I ended up moving to Townsville, tried to do uni for a bit, didn't really like it, wasn't my thing. Dropped out, lived on Centrelink for a while, worked as a show bag seller, mango picker, like I'd done, but you know,
just hustling,
just living a young life, just running amok, and you know, like new and out of my town at this stage. And but then I kind of got my act together, and a friend of mine was volunteering at Murray radio station in Townsville called Radio 4K1G, and she took me in there, and then we started volunteering, and then it just like changed my whole world. Like it was exactly the place that I wanted to be. I was on CDP. I don't know if you know what that is. Like, so up in Queensland, there was a thing called CDP, and it was basically work for the dole stuff for blackfellas. And that's what I did. So I ended up signing up with them, and then I did my little work hours through the station, and I volunteered for a long time before I even got paid, because I just loved it. I'd spend my little last, you know, $30 was my Centrelink money, and I'd catch the bus into town and volunteer on my 1 day a week and did my little 1 hour show. And just from there, my media career, I just found that passion for it, and I just hustled my way. Like any job that they needed done around the station, paneling like for somebody else, or we need you to come in and clean up the record area or the CD area, like I would do it, you know what I mean? Because I was like, I just want to learn. I want to be on air. I want to learn everything about the industry. And yeah, by the time I think I was 25, I was doing, after 5 years at the radio station from volunteer, I ended up becoming the full-time breakfast announcer. Yeah, so that kind of went from there, and then done the 5 years, and like I went to Bachelor Institute in the beginning and did my certificates, and that's when I met a lot more mob in the industry, and those people today are still some of my best friends. And still in media, still in black media, you know, doing like they're all running stuff now. So it was such a for like 17 to have this little moment of being in a tent running people down to I end up making a career out of it. I don't know. Like, you know those moments at school where your teacher's like, being smart won't get you anywhere. What's this then? So yeah, that's how
Wow.
my media career started. It. Yeah, I ended up going on to like a fair few things. Moved to Sydney and went to AFTRS, the Australian Film, Television and Radio School, and ended up graduating there that year as the first Indigenous radio graduate in the school's history, which was like, it was disappointing because that was in 2010, because I was like, why am I the first one? Like, this place is like such an elite school. But because it was just like this school that everyone just found it possible to get into, somehow I cracked it and got in, and then wanted to quit a million times while I was there, and was homesick living in Sydney and didn't know anyone. And, you know, it was hard, but I did it because I wanted that certificate. So yeah, graduating at the end of it was amazing. So that took me to a few places like ABC and a few others, but it was a big kind of start to my career, if you can say that.
Yeah. And what was that like? As you know, you would have been the only, you know, Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person there. What was that like?
Yeah, so in the afters at the time, I think there was about 6 of us, blackfellas, but most of the blackfellas were in film and TV. So I was the only one in the radio course. So it was really there was only 10 people in our course. So people all over Australia apply every year, but only 10 people get chosen, and I end up getting chosen. And I resigned from my job in Townsville with no real plan. And then after I applied for that and didn't think I'd get in, and I got in, and I was like, oh, now I've got to move to Sydney. So it was really funny because I was living at the Blackfella Hostel there, which is Tony Mundine Hostel in Sydney. It's funny because everyone, like, you are the blackfellas that come from out of town from Sydney, and you say, oh, where'd you stay? Oh, I stayed at Tony Mun, you know, like everyone's had their little time at Tony Mun. Yeah, we've done our time at Tony Mun. You know, it's one of those like places. It's like, but at the time, that place really suited me as a student with no money. But it was this really different dynamic. So I was going to the school as the only blackfella in my course, and it's this multi-million-dollar facility, you know, probably regarded as the best media school in the country. So I'm going there every day with all this Migaloo mob, very eclectic mix of people. So we had very like conservative people. We had, you know, lesbians and gay people, and we had me as a black fella. We had like every little box ticked in this one course. You know what I mean? There's all like everyone from every like corner of Australia in that one group. So I was going to this course every day doing night classes, and then I'd come home to this real black place, you know, with all these black fellas from all over the place, that something would be happening that night, or this one is growling with this one. But then I'd go to school, and then I'm with all these like Migaloo ups. It was just like these two worlds, you know, like,
yeah.
But it kept me really grounded, because I was like, all right, when all these mob are doing my head in at the hostel, I'll go to school and I'll just hang around these Migaloo mob, and I'll do my stuff. But then I'd go, oh, this is like a strange world to me. So I'll go back to this family that I got at home that I live with. Like, and then we just, you know, I met mob from all over the country at Tony Mun. There were a lot of people, students, a lot of elders living there as well. And it just was such in like a strange time. It was hard living by myself and trying to survive. I was 25, so had limited money, studying at night, was just really hustling. I was doing some volunteer stuff at Koori Radio. So, but then I was also like brand new in a city, living out of a suitcase. It was super exciting at the same time. So I look back on it, and it was one of the most challenging but rewarding years of my life. Loved it. Would recommend going to afters, would recommend staying at Tony Mun, do all that. It was deadly.
Oh, deadly. That's so special. Thanks for sharing that. So how did you get into CJ's Vine? So do you want to just give, because for our listeners who aren't familiar with it, do you want to just give us a quick run through of what that was and where the idea came from?
Yeah, so I guess before I get into CJ's Vines, the reason why I started that kind of started from when I stepped out of media. So I was living when I was graduated from AFTERS, I finished, and then I had a job with ABC Radio, 702, was working on the night shift program. And then I had like a contract. I was ready to start at Triple J Radio, and I was about 3 weeks out of starting that. And my mum passed away suddenly. So it was just like an average day. And I just got a phone call, and my mum had been rushed to hospital, and then next minute she passed away an hour later. So, you know, my life's gone from this year of graduating and being independent and living and having this really exciting career to then my mum's literally passed away. Like my whole life changed like that night. She left behind our 13-year-old brother. So he was 13. And I literally moved home the next day. I didn't even have stuff packed. I just packed a bag and went on a plane and went back home to the Tablelands to be, you know, with Sorrow Business and family, and just literally like my life was upside down at that point. So being up there, and it was kind of, it's towards the end of the year. My mum's anniversary every year is on the 29th of December. So it's that weird kind of time of the year where it's after Christmas in between New Year's, where no one knows what the date is. So every day was like blurry around that period of time. And the priority then was like, do I go back to this career, living in Sydney, doing radio, essentially living a single selfish life, right? Like I didn't have kids or anything, or what was going to be the best option with my brother now, because all we all cared about was each other at that time. And I tossed up, you know, do I go back? Do I stay? Who's going to look after him? Is it me? Is it someone else? You know, like it was all of this stuff on top of grief. And yeah, eventually I ended up taking my brother in, and I made a decision myself, but also alongside my brother and my immediate family. A lot of people said that I shouldn't do it. A lot of people said I couldn't do it. But I knew at that time that it was just what I needed to do and what was best for me, but also my brother and our family. So as part of doing that, I had to step out of media, because where we were living was a rural area. Like I said, the Tablelands is all farming, and kind of that industry doesn't really exist up there. So I just took some time off media and essentially just stepped out of media full time from that day on. I never really went back to it full time. I then went in kind of like survival mode. Like my brother just was a couple of weeks out of starting high school. So it was about getting him through school, not causing any more trauma for any of us, and just staying put and being around family and on country. And so that's what I did for 2 years. In that time period, you know, I really kind of had to say goodbye to my media career, which was, looking back at it now, like, you know, I can process it 11, 12 years now it's been. And I look back and go, oh, how did I make that decision at 25 years old? Like and in grief, and to take on a 13-year-old, I don't know how I did. I actually don't know. You know, do you look at 25-year-olds, people are out clubbing, they're having relationships for the first time, they're doing all of those things, where I literally took on a 13-year-old with complex trauma. And at the time too, I didn't know, but my brother had fetal alcohol syndrome and ADHD. So, you know, his behaviors weren't always like normal. They were normal for us, but looking back at it, no. You know, so it was at that time period, I don't know. I just don't know how I did it. But I was also grieving another life, which was my own life of my career and the things that I had worked for, being a single person with no responsibility, like my own money now wasn't my money, it was our money. There was a lot, it's like completely life-changing. So I think then we stayed up home for about 2 years, and then I worked in like the youth sector. Then I kind of started getting into the youth sector as like a means of making some money while I was at home, and worked at my old high school and did some mentoring, and you know, got into that side of things, which really helped me. And it showed me a whole nother aspect of work life that I didn't know, because I'd only ever known media. So that, you know, I got some more experience there and really loved it. And then, yeah, moved us to Brisbane in 2013 to kind of get more job opportunities for myself and my brother as well, just for him to finish high school, those senior years, and having more opportunity for like school-based traineeships and things like that. I just wanted to give him a bit more than up home that you're in competition with everyone else, you know what I mean? Whereas down in the city area, yeah, there's more opportunity. So it wasn't until 2014 I started working with NITV, did some media with them, and they got me as one of their in-field reporters. And I kind of started getting back into creative work then, but it's all kind of around money and like if people have money for this project or that project, and I'd do some NAIDOC coverage every now and then with them. And like, it was only ever little kind of jobs. It was never like a full-time thing. And I was working in the youth sector still down here, which I really enjoyed, but I always missed that creative stuff. So then one day I just did like a silly video on Snapchat when Snapchat kind of first came out. And I think the first video I ever did was Corey's at the knockout. Like it was something like that. It was like Corey's at the knockout. Be like, and that I put it on my Snapchat, and then I think I end up downloading and just putting it on my Facebook, and it got something like 40,000 views overnight. And like this was before TikTok, you know what I mean? Like you got to think about like when social media. This is 2016, so 40,000 views in one night was like hectic. You know, I was like, wow. I had like all these people trying to add me as a friend on my profile, and I was like, no, what have I done? You know, like. But then I was like, oh, that was actually really fun. And like people were like, oh, that's funny. Like, what else? You know, do something else. And so I said, well, I know I've got like more of these simple videos with me being cracked and just mocking and just being like, that's just how we are as Murray. We just mock and silly, you know, have a really cracked sense of humor. I knew I had more, but I didn't want to do it on my own private page. So I said, oh, should I make a page? And people were like, yeah, make a page, make a page. And at the time, the only kind of other people that had a page were like Bush Tucker Bungie, Tibby and Brother Tibbs, like Andrew Zaro, and maybe like Elizabeth Waimara. So that was around that time, like that there weren't many, like social media wasn't, black fellas on social media wasn't like a big thing. So that's kind of how it just took off, eh? Like I just started it out of love to want to create and make love, like mob laugh. That's really all it was in the start.
Wow. Wow. Hey, not to go back to it and linger there, but I really do appreciate you sharing your story about your mum.
Yeah.
I lost my father quite young as well. I was 20 years old. And it just flips your world upside down, you know what I mean? So I don't know your experience, I don't know your feeling, but I know mine, and I wouldn't want that for anybody. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's really hard to do. But with CJ's Vines, like, how many videos did you do? Like it's I remember watching them you know, a few years back, and you know, cracking up laughing, like funny as but like for the people that haven't seen the videos, what kind of content were you discussing, and why do you think it was so successful?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. Like I think at the time I never made CJ's Vines to get money or to make it big or to get a following or for likes or any. I literally was just like, I've got all this cracked stuff that happens up here in my mind, and I've said I've always had that. Like I can do stupid accents, and I can do a really good Corey voice, or I know how a mob go. Like we have really silly yarns because we sit around with our family, and we all got them family members, our aunties, and they're not even trying to be funny. Like they're just intrinsically funny. Sometimes it's born out of trauma, the humor, but I knew like I've got that cracked way, and everyone that would probably meet me would say I'm cracked, right? It's probably the one thing, if you can use one word to describe me, be cracked. So I didn't start CJ's Vines to be an influencer, because that wasn't even a thing then. It really wasn't. It was like, I just have this creative content. I will put it out there just for laughs. That's it. And as it kind of started to evolve, and it got bigger and bigger, and the thing, I think the first one that kind of took off really big was Precious, the flight attendant. So it was, I predominantly used Snapchat as like a filter. So it'd either be like a voice changer or a filter of a rabbit or whatever it was at the time, because they used to change the filters, so week by week or something else. I don't know what I was. And at first it was to disguise myself because I didn't want mob knowing it was me, like Doogie. Like I thought like a filter's gonna change. You know what I mean? Like what is Doogie? Like anyway, but that was kind of like, I don't know, I could hide behind that. And the funny thing with CJ's Vines is I never did it in front of anyone else. Like I never would do a skit in front of anybody else because I was ashamed. Like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's shame. And I'd hunt, like I was with a partner at the time, and I'd hunt him and I'd be like, get out. I got to do this video here now. And he's like, just let me watch. I'm like, get out. Like, because I don't want to do it in front of everyone else, but I'll put it out on the internet for like however many thousands of people to watch and then forget people are watching it. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I just never put two and two together. I was literally just doing the skits and what I thought was funny and putting it out there. And then I'd go, oh, well, that was not. And then people would watch it and I'd be like, oh, that's mad, But I'm a very good observer. Like I'll observe behavior. I observe sayings, accents. I've always been like that. So watching our mob and taking off that auntie or taking off that cousin or that brother boy that you see, or Kuris or Nungas or whoever, we all have our little nuances. And I think like everything that I ever put out, whether it be black mums were like, or black boyfriends or black girlfriends were like those were the types of things that I was doing. So relatable. I think that's why it became so big, because everything I would ever say was either something I have said personally, my mum, a lot of it was based off my mother's own, how she used to carry on, especially like black mums flogging their kids and stuff like that, like, well, not, you know what I mean, like black mum growling or whatever, like it was black mums on the phone be like it was just who I had seen growing up. So it was all lived experience. So there was, times where mob would go, oh, that's a stereotype, or like, oh, why are you doing that? And I'm like, is it a stereotype if I'm basing it off somebody I know though, or like that we all know that person? Like, yes, it may not be, but I was very much like, I'm like a parrot, like I will mimic what I see. And that's, I think, what a lot of CJ's Vines was, just mimicking our nuances in community, making it a laugh. And yeah, I think the big one was like Precious, the flight attendant. So that was a character that I made up, that literally I dressed up as a flight attendant, a black one, with bunny ears. And I pretended I was giving a, flight announcement, but it was a black airline and she was a black air hostess. And she talked exactly how she wanted. And literally everyone would say, oh, we're Precious, we're Precious. Like it became like a full character. And that got like 200,000+ views. And I don't know how many shares in the end. It was like bananas, and people would say we were more Precious, and to the point people would like Snapchat me on the plane when they're on the plane and like, we're Precious, like it became like a thing. And because at the time I was flying so much, and so I just was like, oh, what if a flight attendant was a black fella, man, and they could just yarn however they wanted. And that was it. It just was born out of that. And the videos were just, it was just me thinking like, oh, what if there was a black version of this? And there weren't really anything to compare it to at the time. Like, it wasn't TikTok. There wasn't anyone else kind of doing it. It was literally just me and my simple thoughts. So that's why I think it got so big, because it was like, what could I do next,
And I think because it's so relatable, like you're saying, we've all got someone in our family that either does those behaviors or, acts like that or whatever. So I just remember busting out laughing. But when you get to that level where you're getting like 40,000 views or even more, millions of views, is there pressure with that as well?
Yeah, I think it was funny because when it first started, I got a couple of hundred followers, and then, hey, look out, I got 1,000 followers overnight. Hey, look out, and then it was like, oh, and people started messaging and people started sharing. And I was living with my partner at the time and my little brother, and said, hey, look out, I got 2,000 followers here. And they're like, nah, you think you're deadly, eh? Nah, not even funny. Nah, a little 2,000, but whatever, like black ones, they'll keep you grounded real quick. So there was no chance of me getting a big head from the get-go, but it was funny because I'm like, whatever, little haters, but then I got to like 40,000. No, I think when I hit 20,000 followers, my brother goes, oh, you should tag me there, tag me in your little video. Come on, we should do a little video. It's because, nah, don't come and try and come on my little videos. Now you was running me down when I had a couple of, nah, go away, you know. I think when it hit 20,000 followers was kind of like, oh yeah, there's a lot. Like that's, yeah, okay, this is growing, and it grew really fast. Really, really fast. I think why it did was because our mob are the biggest Dorises and we share everything on Facebook. And the biggest Dorises on Facebook are black aunties, and they loved my stuff. So the black aunties were sharing it. You know what I mean? Like they were like, here, look, and they tag all their nieces and nephews and kids, and everyone tagging each other, and then it just blew up. Yeah, there was a bit of pressure. At the start, I was like, well, I don't have anything to lose. Like I started this out of nothing. You know what I mean? I started it out of nothing. I didn't start it to gain anything. So yeah, 20,000 followers, that's a spin out to me. Like I didn't comprehend. I think got a bit of pressure started happening when I'd go out to community events, or I'd even like go to the shop and someone would recognize me. And I'd like freak out because I'm a person with like anxiety. So I'm like, hey, like, don't look, you know, like I'd started getting real paranoid. And then forget that people are like, I'm putting stuff out there that people can see who I am, and like, and people would come up and yarn, and people still do it. Actually, it's funny. Like every now and then someone, like, even though I don't do CJ's Vines anymore, and I thought, that's something I used to do, people still remember it because it was only like a couple of years ago now, like a year ago I had it. And so people still recognize that and go, oh, hey, and they'll just come and yarn me like they've known me forever. And they'll, hey, CJ, how are you? And like, and I'm in my head, I'm racking my brain going, do I know this person? Like, how do I know this person? I feel really rude. I don't know their name. I don't know like, who is this? And I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, yarning up. And they go, oh, sorry, yeah, no, I've been following you for years and that. And I'm like, oh, true. And I go, oh, I've never met this person. I don't look rude, but I think the pressure started for me when the videos started getting bigger and bigger, and then the negative kind of stuff started to seep in, which was new to everyone online at the time. You know, it was like dealing with the pressure of it. But I think as a female doing what I was doing, like the followers, and I used to yarn about this with like King Percy and Bush Tucker Bungee and Mob, like we were kind of the only ones doing it then. And the boys would say to me, like, you're doing the same kind of humor that we're doing, but you cop so much crap. Like you cop extra amounts of, you know, she thinks she's deadly, or that's not even funny, or whatever it was, you know what I mean? And that was black and white. So, but, you know, say like Bush Tucker Bungee would do something similar, and, oh, bro, you're funny, oh, bro. And I was like, oh, yeah, there is a real, like, thing with our mob of, like, black women, you know, telling really kind of, like, on the cusp jokes or racy kind of jokes, or jokes that are pushing the barriers. Oh, black women can't do that. No, you got to be a role model. You got to do this. You got to do that. So I think the pressure I felt was because I was working with young people at the time. So I was really conscious of, I don't want to put content out that first is going to make me lose my job. They'll pay rent. Secondly, I do want to show a young mob that I don't want to swear. Like I never swore in any of my videos, because I think black comedy can be funnier than that. Like I think we're better than just a swearing joke. Or we can all do that. We speak like that every day, but it was a challenge for me. Can I be funny without the emphasis with swearing in it to make it funny? You know what I mean? That was just me. And I was like, oh, everyone else, like, up to you. So no judgment. But for me, I was like, I work with young people. I want to make an example that I'm putting out videos, they're funny, but they don't have to have swearing in it to be funny, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was kind of feeling different pressure at different times. And then the pressure to produce stuff. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And it's like, it's really actually really hard. And like the things now with comedy, I guess a lot of people on TikTok and others, they have a lot of like TikTok gives you all of these features, and you can cut together videos really easy, and there's all these funny little templates you can use or whatever. Like it gives you a lot now to work with. Whereas when I was doing it, I used to write my skits in my phone, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning when my brain wouldn't stop, because that's how my brain goes when it comes to creative stuff. and I'd write the skits out literally, and then I would act them out on the camera just to me and myself and I, and that was it, you know. There was no real help. I just had like a Snapchat filter sometimes and a voice changer, but otherwise I did all the editing myself. Was just like downloading its top end and, you know, top and tail video, chuck a description up, put some captions. Like a lot of work went into it. I think Mob thought that it was just something I'd do like off the drop of the hat, but at first it was, but towards the end it was really like, oh, I've got to really plan this. There's times where I'm going to post it. Like I started working out trends. I started working out hashtags. What got me more followers, what got me more likes, to then get more shares and more views. So yeah, it's a lot of pressure in the end because you're working for it. And to get 40,000 likes on Facebook versus something like a TikTok or an Instagram reel is really difficult. Like, you know, so to have that, it's because Mob shared it so much. It wasn't because of me. It was, yeah, because Facebook, we're all there being big eyes, big dories.
Yeah, it's funny, like with the TikTok, because I don't know, I think maybe I'm just a little bit too old to figure out how TikTok works, but like what you're saying there, like they give you it's kind of like pre-made comedy, and it doesn't matter if some person's already made the video. You can, you know, other fellas can recreate the same video, and it could be just as funny, or, you know, whatever it is. Because I remember that Zoolander thing, you know, where they bump into each other. That was gone, you know, just recently. It's been going around, and it's like it's cringy now because I've seen it so much, and it's all that kind of stuff. But I think when I was watching you, if someone had recreated it, I think the vibe around that time would have been like, oh, you're ripping people off, what are you doing type thing. So it's really hard during your time of doing CJ's Vines to keep your content fresh and funny and a lot of effort. That's one of the main reasons I asked, you know, how much pressure is involved in that. And I can only imagine. And by the time, you know, you were finishing up, is that like more of a job? Like, is it still enjoyable?
Yeah. Look, I done so many videos in the end. I got less and less because there's only so many times you can do this or that. And it was literally coming up with fresh content and being creative with how you were making a video. So you didn't look like Bush Tucker Bunge, or you weren't taking off Tibbs Vines, or we all had our individual styles, which was really deadly, and we all supported each other as content creators, because like I said, there was only a couple of us at the time. I'm too old for TikTok, and like I get too involved in it too. Like if I get on it, I get too deep within the algorithm and I'm out. Like I'll lose days and weeks. I know how I go. So I've just every now and then I'll get on there and like I look at you know, what people are doing now on TikTok, and, you know, the new kind of breed of black comedy that's coming out of TikTok. It's completely different, you know, and that's great. Like but I guess, yeah, like you were saying, in the era that I was doing it when it was kind of first starting, which was just after Vines, just around the Vines era, which was kind of like your TikTok back then. Yeah, that's hence why it was called CJ's Vines, because it was around the time of Vines. So, yeah, it was a lot of pressure, and in the end, the content got less and less, and then it kind of started to evolve into different things. You know, it was never going to be just this or just that, but it was predominantly a comedy page. But then I would bring in, you know, political aspects into my comedy, like Australia Day racism be like, or, you know, like I would start to go black girlfriends versus white girlfriends, and, you know, do things that people were like, oh, you can't say that. I was like, well, we all talk about it, so I'm going to put in a comedy like this. I'm showing the differences, you know what I mean? And there's clear differences. And yeah, I was kind of mocking and I was over exaggerating. That's comedy, you know, half the time. It's that little bit of exertion on top of like being average. So I played up. Yeah, I played up for it. But in the end, like it did start to evolve into other things. It became a little bit of like, you know, Black Lives Matter stuff really started to amp up as well when I had that. And I felt a bit of a pressure with the platform and somebody that was active in community to use that platform, you know, I can't just do comedy, but I'm also passionate about my community. I'm going to use that platform that I've got. And I don't have to be at every rally or sometimes people go, oh, can you share this? Can you share that? And I'd sometimes say, hey, look, it doesn't get as much engagement if I share it, and it probably won't get what you're looking for and what you're needing, because my audience didn't really want some of that half the time. They just wanted the comedy stuff. So I tried to keep it as that. But then, if there was, I know Elijah Doherty over in Kalgoorlie, was hit by a car and run over, that on a motorbike. That happened while I had CJ's Vines, and I can't, as a person, as a black fella, be quiet about that. So I went to the rally just like everyone else, but I streamed it on my Facebook to my followers so they could see, like what was happening. And I just tried to use it where I could, like I'm not an activist. I have activism in me. I was born with activism like all of us, but I'm not the person up on the podium, like we all have a role. And that was just my way that I could use my audience to influence, my followers and other people to kind of bring light to what we were dealing with at the time that I had CJ's Ones. But yeah, in the end, it became something that I was like, I just don't know if I want to take this anymore, if I still want to. It was a lot of pressure. I was like, do I keep it because I have a following? It was a big network as well, so I kept it for a long time for that reason. Like, I could literally go anywhere and I'd go, oh, hey, I'm in the middle of somewhere. Is anyone I know here? Boom, I'd have followers come down and see me. Like, that was in Tenterfield once. Tenterfield's in the middle of nowhere, man. And I was there for like work. And I was there a bit early, and I was like, oh, do I know anyone at Tenterfield? Like, I'm downtown here. Come down and see me if you're into. One fellow come down, he shut the medical center. He come downtown to say hello. I was like, you did what? He's like, nah, don't worry about it. It's all right. It's all right. Like, I'm on lunch. They can all wait. Like, that's the type of like followers I had,
Towns down.
And I was like, hey, shut up in Tenterfield. I was like, too bad if you need to go health center in Tenterfield. Brother was there downtown catching up with CJ. But that's the following I had, like I kept it for a long time because people would just message me like, that my comedy really helped them, or that they love my content, or they respected what I did, or it was so much more than just putting videos out. In the end, it became a platform that was for mob, and I felt bad, like, it's for you mob now. It's like it's run by the people. It's not run by me. I'm just the one who does it. But yeah, I don't know. There's a bit of an ownership of community with it. So I did feel the pressure, but in the end, I just stopped kind of using it, and the cyberbullying really amped up, and like I just kind of got tired. I got tired from using it, and there were new people coming into the space of influencing and all that kind of stuff. To me, I never saw myself as an influencer, but that's just that because when I started, that word really wasn't around as much. And then in the last kind of years of CJ's Wines, the last 3 years, that has really amped up off the Black Lives Matter stuff. A lot of black fellas got a profile from that, and influencing now is like a thing. People were getting paid to influence. I never did. Good on them, man. Like deadly.
Chasing that back pay.
Yeah, like getting that back pay, getting that ab study. Yeah, the ab study incidentals there. But yeah, like in the end, it just became a bit of a chore, hey, and I kept it for so long for everyone else, but I could see it was making me unhappy because I started to not be able to be myself on it anymore without someone else having a go, or this cyberbully was happening, or this person was carrying on, and like so many voices started getting louder and louder, and I was just like, oh, I don't really want to be in that. Like, I just did it for comedy, I just did it for a laugh, but it doesn't seem to be getting that anymore. So I just went, what's going to serve me now? Like, and I just don't want it's funny because one day you want some followers and then the next day you're like, no, I don't want any followers, So yeah, I ended up making the decision to shut down CJ's Vines mid last year. And it was a long time coming. Like I said, it wasn't just like an overnight thing and like, oh, this happened, so I shut it down. It was nothing like that. It was literally like probably the 2 years before I shut it down, I contemplated shutting it down for a long time. But yeah, last year, I just went, oh, no, it's time for me to just do me now and concentrate on work. And I started weaving and doing other therapeutic things that were serving me, and that became the priority. So yeah, I ended up deleting it, which was a big it was scary, but it was like kind of like the right time. The chapter was ready to be closed, if that makes sense. So from 2016 to 2022, it was a long time to
Mm.
expectation of being funny and being a role model now and an influencer and all the other terms people would give me. But I was like, I'm just a crack Murray from North Queensland who likes to make silly jokes on the internet. That's all I am, all I ever was. So in the end, I was like, oh, I just want to like have a quiet life now, and have no like expectations of me anymore. So I don't
Mm.
I don't regret deleting it. I miss the followers, but grateful that people still come up and yarn and still remember it or have fond memories of it. I think about maybe I should get a tattoo with like the date that it started to the date that it died, like a memorial tattoo, just for laughs for me. Like, that might still happen, but then I'm like, maybe one day CJ will want to come back, and who knows? Who knows? So
Oh, look out, little.
I might
Yeah,
get
okay.
one. I never fully closed the door, but it was weird too. Well, I have fully closed it on CJ's once because I deleted it. So 40,000 followers, I would spend years and hours and weeks of content and years of content. I saved it all and I've got it on my computer, and but those followers are gone, those views are gone. And that's something that I can go, oh, that's fun. I did that, that was deadly, but on to the next thing.
Mm. No, that's deadly. Um, you yarned about your weaving, but before we move on, I just wanted to kind of get a little bit of advice from you because you've experienced a lot, and I know particularly for our young mob, they experience it a lot. But you talked about cyberbullying, right?
Mm.
And I guess, do you have any advice in terms of someone who might be a victim of cyberbullying, how they can protect themselves? And do you have a message against people who, perpetrate cyberbullying and, whether they realize the impacts of that or whether it's lateral violence or if it's more targeted at a certain um, individual quirk or whatever?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, look, cyberbullying really ramped up for me when I started to talk about being a black fella online, especially being light skinned too. People couldn't put two and two together, mainly white people that would find my page. So CJ's One's audience was always, my jokes were always written for black fellas. It was always for mob, from mob perspective. So it was never for a white audience. If a white audience found it and people liked it, they were welcome to it, but it was actually never for them. It was always for mob. So that's how I wrote everything. That's how I posted everything, was directed at us, at our community. But as soon as obviously other people started seeing it because it was gaining so many followers and being shared around and kind of going a bit viral, racism started and black fellas with I guess you'll call it lateral violence or jealousy or whatever it is. Oh, she's dry or she did. I used to have mob, like one person threatened me one time, inboxed me because I'd blocked her off my page for writing something that she took one of my memes that I'd made. And obviously she took really like deep offense to it and thought it was about her. I'd never met this person before in my life. I've never like spoken to them. And it like, because that meme must have hit home, like auntie like found my personal page and abused me, threatened me. If you ever come up here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So it really ramped up and I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. That's when it kind of crossed like a bit of a line. I used to get, oh, you look as white as snow or whatever, you COON. Like I'd get full racism, full like trolling, stalking. Like the internet's a big world. When you start to go any sort of big in it, you really see really quickly how many weirdos are out there. And like, but even like the cyberbullying that will come from our mob, that was probably like the most hurtful bit. I could take the white fellas, I could take the racism, like I could do that, it would hurt. But at the end, I was like, yeah, whatever, man, it's the water off duck's back. I've grown up with that stuff, so I know how to handle it. But at first, it was like, oh, well, how do you deal with this online? Do you expose these people? Do you not say anything? Like, the stuff with mob, like, and especially if I knew I was going to post something controversial, or this might get a little bit of hate, or this one could, rub people a certain way. And I didn't do that to people. I did it because I was like, this is funny, but I can see how it would be, it's racy, it's right on the line. That's what comedy is. It's pushing that boundary. And yeah, sometimes the boundary went too far. And I had people go, that meme's out of line, sis. Like, people would inbox me, hey, like, I don't really, sis, bro. And I go, oh, yep, completely see that now. And I'm sorry, I'll take it down. Like I was always like, yeah. But then if I justify and go, no, sorry, but I can see your side, but I can also see this side. So there's a fine line of juggling stuff, but cyberbullying is from, challenging someone to then trying to run down their reputation, ganging up with a group of people, reposting without tagging that person and talking about them on circles or online, or like that's the next level of cyberbullying. And I've been on the end of that, and it's literally made me want to harm myself. Like, I'm not going to lie, it was really difficult, because I think people forget it's like an assault. I say it's like an assault to the mind. So it's like someone punching you. Like, it's the same as if you're standing in front of someone and they're having a physical fight with you, punching into you. That's what cyberbullying is. It's someone who's standing there with people assaulting them, but assaulting their mind. And so the way that I kind of went about that at the beginning was to share my, especially if you're getting into looking at creating content of any sort, you will get any sort of hate. You will get some sort of positive and some sort of negative. When that negative comes along, and like, hey, I don't know how I feel about that. And words are strong. Like, people think that, it's just something I said to them, they'll get over it. They put themselves out there, so she can handle it. She want to put that out there, or he want to put that out there. They should be able to cop it back. But people forget there's a real person on the end of that. And I was a very real person in the community. So most likely you'll see me around. Like, I'm not just some invisible person you see on the internet that's this make-believe character that just makes this comedy. I'm a real person. I'm a person in the community. You'll see me at the, the NAIDOC. You'll see me at the places. Like, you will run into me. So when you see me, will you bring that same energy? You know what I mean? Or just behind the screen saying it because you think, oh, she's not really there. She's there, but she's not really there. So I can say whatever I want to her or them. You know what I mean? So I ended up, the way I kind of countered that bullying was I ended up sharing with some close friends of mine, trusted close friends, my password to my page, and I'd get them to monitor my social media, especially if I knew, like, oh, look, I just need a break for a couple of days, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I've been getting hateful messages. Can you like block this, or can you? And so they knew what to look for. They knew what to do. In the end, I didn't engage. That's the best advice I can give to anybody, is like, as much as you want to have your say back, these people argue with you all day, and they literally want to get famous off your name. So do not give them the fame. They're looking for clout off your name, off your following, off making you wild, off making you upset. They want that. So don't give it to them, because that's all cyberbullying is, So especially as Black followers, when it comes from our own community, it's hurtful. And I think we do have this cancel culture that's happening within our community that just goes so far. And we're like, it's like this payback thing of like, well, no, you said this, so we'll never forget that. We will never give you another chance. We'll never like see you in the same light. And we're just going to cancel you. This person's canceled. And if you're any sort of person you side with, you got to be here or you got to be there. And it's like, it's just so really, it's become really toxic. And it was another reason why I got offline. The cancel culture of people not even being able to be themselves or say what they want to say on their own platforms, So my best advice is like, don't engage back. If you have to cut the snake off the head, like I had to in the end, it was a big decision for me to go, do I give people access to me? I'm the one giving them the access. So I could either keep doing that and I can either handle it or cop it or do whatever. But after so many years in the game and having to deal with it over and over. And in the end, it was just completely changed. So I was like, oh, like I think I'm at my tether, but people should be able to create content and be themselves online without cyberbullying. You know, it's really tough, but I'd say like just reach out to people that's close to you. If it really does get tough, like call somebody, see somebody like psychologist, because it can impact your mental health, your physical health, everything. So don't take it lightly. It is real, unfortunately. But yeah, just try not to engage. That's probably my best advice.
Thanks for that. And I 100% agree with you. You know, it's just as harmful as physical violence. So, um, absolutely, I think the best thing you can do is not engage.
Yeah.
And I guess after experiencing that, you know, is there a level of healing that you have to go through? Because I noticed, you know, you mentioned your weaving and how that's a therapeutic process. You know, so is that a part of it? Did you find weaving through that, or is it?
I started weaving when I was in my early 20s, when our family started to revive that weaving practice back home. You know, weaving with my auntie and learning about our natural fibers back home, you know, just learning that again, all together. My cousins and I, my aunties, like, you know, we started doing that when I was back home on country, and that became a part of my healing. But I stopped doing it for a while because of working and moving to the city and doing stuff. And then 2009, end of 2019, just before COVID, actually, I actually bought a weaving kit for a friend of mine, and she's like, you know, she's a bit of an elderly person, and she said, I don't know how to start this. Like, can you start it? And I said, yeah, because she's a person that's got everything. So I was like, what do you buy a person that's got everything? But she really is an ally for mob. So I was like, oh, I'll buy her like a weaving kit, and like, you know, that's something that she can make and have. And anyway, I started it for her. I said, yeah, I'll start it for you. So I started it. And then I was like, oh, I actually like really miss doing this. And then she ended up, we all did it together, like at work, and everyone had a bit of a go. And then in the end, like I ended up finishing it for her, and then was like, oh, like that was really like something I really missed. And then I just was like, I want to do some more of it, you know. And then I started doing more, had a little basket, and then just for myself, you know, it was nothing for anything, and just to revive that skill set again after so long. And but then I was going through a breakup at the time, and with a long-term partner, and then I picked up the weaving, and then I was having a lot of stress at work, and then I just found myself weaving more and more. And then I made a pair of earrings, and people were like, hey, how do I get that earring, you know? And then I was like, oh yeah, I'll make you some. Like, it was a gift, and I just started gifting people because it was healing me, like as I was doing it. It's very therapeutic, you know. It's sitting down, being quiet, using your hands. And I'm the type of person that I'm like, when I'm watching TV, I've got to be doing something else. I can't just sit and watch the TV. I can't just read a book. Like, I've got to do something else. And like with my hands, like I said earlier, I'm a real creative person. I like to create, like to paint. I like to make things. I like to organize things. That's just how I work. So weaving is so therapeutic, but you can constantly create something different every time. And just knowing that like every time I do that, I'm connecting to another part of culture, another part of that healing process. So it's become now an accidental business that's kind of been born out of it, because it started to kind of have its own life beyond just the healing and beyond just creating for gifts. So I was like, oh, there was a bit of survival stuff in it, of like, I've got to now pay a bit more rent, and this person wants to buy these earrings from me. So yep, cool. And I separate my weaving from, you know, using things like this, which is raffia, which is a contemporary fiber. You know, I'll use that and sell that. But if I go home and I weave a basket out of my natural lamandra, or any of our natural fibers from back home, that's traditional weaving. I won't sell that. That'll be for family. That'll be for displays or sharing. So I go, oh, yep, this is it's active weaving, and I can weave with different fibers and contemporary fibers. I will sell that. But traditional weaving I keep for myself or for our family.
Yeah, wow. Because I work in corrections, so we run a program. I run a program for men, and the women run the equivalent. And a part of their therapeutic process is they'll do 2 to 3 days of content covering, and then the third or fourth day will be a weaving workshop, and which a lot of I personally believe a lot of the meaningful yarns happen in that process when the content's in the back of their brain, and then you have those softer yarns, and it's kind of just exactly what you're talking about. I guess a little bit of a distraction, but that's a healing process of just going, and connecting to some cultural practices that either some of these prisoners have forgotten or never experienced before. So I think it's just reconnecting and going on that healing journey.
Yeah, it relaxes you enough that you start to think about things, but you're still being grounded by your hands working and your mind being creative. So yes, you might start talking and you might start opening and sharing things that you wouldn't normally share, or because you're relaxing and you're just centering, like in that moment when you're weaving for women. And it is a safe space. It is a time where it kind of unlocks a part of your mind and your emotional well-being as well. It's pretty magical like that. I guess the equivalent will be for men doing men's business, so like for women it's a way to sit and connect and think and yarn and heal. It just is like a winner all around it. And I do a similar weaving program in the young women's detention center in Brisbane, West Moreton Detention Center. And not every week every girl wants to participate, that's fine, but sometimes girls just really take to it, like it's like not everyone's a dancer, not everyone's a singer, not everyone's a weaver. We've all got our attributes that we have within culture, and weaving for me has just been something that I've taken to, along with storytelling through my art and other things. So yeah, I've been pretty grateful that it's found me and I found weaving. So yeah, I find it it's a gift for sure, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So what's the plan for CJ in terms of how big is this weaving stuff going to go?
Yeah, look, like I said, it kind of gained its own life, and I was doing more and more earrings, and I was doing more and more baskets and custom orders, and the demand kind of just became more, to the point that I was studying at uni and I dropped out of uni because I was like, I gotta weave, like that was this makes me more happy than studying and stressing my cheeks out in front of the computer. So I'd rather go and weave, and people want to buy things from me because they enjoy it. They want to wear it, and different people started wearing it. Senator Lydia Thorpe started wearing it. I've had it on ABC, on All My Friends Are Racist. Characters are wearing my weaving on there. And it's just like, to see people wearing my stuff is like mad, it's just amazing. Especially when they walk into Parliament and call the Queen a colonizer while they're wearing some of your earrings. That's,
yes.
It's pretty deadly. It's pretty powerful. Seeing Queer Mob rock a pair of like my rainbow earrings because they're proud of that, So like, I don't know, I love seeing people happy wearing my creations. And I ended up kind of going, well, do I have my own space for it now and keep it away? Because it was kind of interlinked with CJ's Vines at the end. I was like, oh, maybe, CJ's Vines, like maybe they might enjoy it. It's a creative kind of space. And I'm like, oh, I've got to move away from connecting because they're two different things. And after I finished CJ's Vines, I was like, oh, what's next? And it was like, I think now is the time that I have my own weaving. After selling privately for a couple of years and making things privately, I ended up starting Dub and Biger, which is my weaving business now. And that means carrying bags in where I'm from, my Yidinji language. So my uncle gave me that language name to me for my business. And like once I had that, and once I had the language, I waited for the language name. I waited for the right logo, the right feel. I created everything myself, created my own website. I created my own business cards. I'm always playing around with being creative with that. Like, what does it look like? What are my earrings? That's my symbol in the background. It's my logo in the background, QR codes and banners. And like, what else can I make? Now I've been doing like tutorial videos. So when I go to do weaving workshops more and more now, I can teach more people in the circle than just a couple. So I'm just always looking to kind of go, how do I share this with more people? How do I get it out there? So pretty much is like, I want to keep it small, but then I'm also like not opposed to it growing. So that's why I did the business. But, I just kind of have them in a few stores, which I've been pretty lucky to have. So up home, the first store was Botanica, which is a store in Yungaburra where I grew up. And they've got a little store there that stocks First Nations artists and art and products. So I had some earrings and baskets in there. Down here in Brisbane, or up here in Brisbane from you, I've got them at Aboriginal Co, which is a Aboriginal art gallery, Torres Strait Islander art gallery in the city. At South Bank, so they're pretty generous and have stocked them in there. And also Open House Collective, which is another awesome place here in West End, and Thrill House, which is a tattoo kind of creative space studio over in Camp Hill here in Brisbane. So I've gone to a couple of stores, but then I've also just kept them online. And sometimes the demand is a lot more than the supply. Like, I work full time, so I just try and weave on my weekends after work, and it really helps me to start to unwind, especially if I've had a stressful day or a week. I sit there and weave, or I'll sit there and weave and yarn on the phone to my cousins, my sisters, and I'm weaving at the same time. So I just do it for the love of it. And if people want to buy it, then deadly. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But I don't, like, in terms of plans for the weaving, it's just keep at it and just keep doing it and making sure I still love it. That's the main thing.
I think, like, yarning to you today about all these different topics, the key thing that's kind of stood out for me is whatever you do, you kind of go in genuine, and it's just being your authentic self. And then it seems like by doing that, you're just kind of growing and growing and growing into these big, amazing experiences for you. So I think, I guess my advice to anyone that's listening today is kind of just go into your projects, go into your ideas genuine and authentic, I think. But are you happy for me to share these links when I post this? And
yeah, definitely. That's completely fine. Me, I'd love that. Don't have CJ's Vines for you to share anymore, but
yeah, that's right. I don't have the following either, so
nah, that's cool. I'm happy with you to share whatever. But no, that's and thanks for that. That's what I try and do. I always, try and be genuine in everything that I do, truthful, transparent, and yeah, just authentic. At the end of the day, is what I try and aim for. So
totally. That kind of leads into my very last question for you, and it's kind of a theme coming up, big 3 episodes in. But I talk a lot about legacy with my men in the correctional services and what they want to be remembered for. So it's kind of a theme that I ask every guest on this show, in terms of, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want your legacy to be?
Man, that's a big question. Hey, and it's funny, like, my mum passed away when she was 49. So she was 1 month shy of her 50th birthday. And that kind of changed the way that I live. So I don't ever tend to plan like 5 years down the track or even 2 years down the track. I live my life, which I don't know, might be a trauma response. And I've tried to break this the last few years, but I really go kind of maybe 6 months to a year at a time, because I know how quick life can change. And the legacy that she left behind as a person was, she was a straight shooter, my mum, and like I got the same thing. I got the same traits, and I was raised by a strong Black woman. So I want to leave a legacy of, when people remember me, whether or not they liked me or they loved me or they loathed me, whatever it may be, that at the end of the day, I was a straight shooter. I was truthful in everything I did and said, to what I thought anyway. And I want to be known as someone who helped people, who made people laugh, and had a good heart. At the end of that, that's what I aim for. So if I can leave this earth and I give that away, then yeah, that's the legacy I'd love to leave, and some weaving behind as well.
And the Vine videos, right?
And the Vine videos, they'll be played at my funeral. I want like CJ's wine's just streaming. That's gonna happen at my funeral.
Oh, true. Hey, look, thanks for coming on today. We kind of went over the time limit, but look, that was a deadly yarn. I really appreciate you coming on. I don't have an outro, so
That's all right.
what I'm kind of getting people to do is to say, and this is a little bit dumb, but say a little kind of outro for me. So we had a Biggie Smalls quote for the last one, but whatever you pops in your head, put you on the spot.
Oh Lord. The outro. Oh God, you really put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm Carly. I'm a creator. I'm a weaver. I'm a doogie. I'm a cracked Murray. And this was my yarn. Thanks for listening.
Deadly. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, eh?